Now, I'm really delighted to be joined by the former Deputy Prime Minister, Michael the Lord Heseltine, to discuss this. I think we will not get migration under control as long as we are members of the European Convention on Human Rights.
So the stage is set. Rees-Mogg against Michael Heseltine. The subject? Getting rid of the ECHR. But listeners, halfway through, Rees-Mogg still clings to the rather pathetic so-called deterrent of Rwanda, and then hear Heseltine take it to pieces. The interview seems to be cut short by Mogg, possibly sensing his arguments aren't as robust as he portrays.
And that we need to domesticate our law. But I understand that's not your view.
No, your problem, William, is you're obsessed with the European relationship, and we'll never solve the migration problem unless we do it on a European scale. And the quicker we recognise the scale of what's happening and the scale of the increase that is likely to come, the quicker we will seek accord with our European neighbours and pursue a policy designed to cope with the scale of the problem.
But we've seen just in the last week a number of European neighbours suggest that the European Court should be reformed, and the British government hasn't joined that. So we're not even joining with our European neighbours in trying to get the European Court under control.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. That's exactly the futile problem that Brexit has delivered. We have absented ourselves from the corridors of power in Europe. And the quicker we wake up to that and get back at the table and negotiate Britain's self-interest in the forum of Europe, the better chance we have of dealing with this problem.
But as you know perfectly well, it's nothing to do with Brexit. This is to do with the Council of Europe, where we are still members. It's not an EU matter, it's a Council of Europe matter, where we are still members. We just haven't got involved.
It's all part of the Brexit dialogue.
Well,
I mean, your whole introduction to this programme this evening was all about attacking the Labour control of the borders. The Tories had no more control than the Labour Party. It's an escalating problem which needs a European solution.
Well, that's not quite right, because we had the Rwanda scheme, which was on the cusp of beginning to act as a deterrent. Indeed, we'd seen people go to the Republic of Ireland rather than coming to the UK before the Rwanda scheme was in. And that it's the convention, not the commission, that is affecting us in relation to illegal migration.
The Rwanda scheme didn't repatriate one single immigrant. And you know it. It never worked. It was never going to work. And the idea that the Rwandans were going to accept 50,000 immigrants coming from this country, or that we were going to persuade them to go there, is simply unrealistic. And the whole failure of this issue goes back much further than this government. It is the part, I'll tell you what the problem is, that all over the world, people have got these things and they see the standards of living we enjoy in this country. They are young, ambitious, and they want to share in the action. And until we actually come to some sort of rational European policy, we will be faced with this enormous number of people crossing into Europe from the Mediterranean, the Adriatic and the Turkish border.
But we have the great advantage of the Channel and a sea border that we can protect, and that we could remove people if we had the determination to do it. And the thing that stopped Rwanda was the Supreme Court ruling on the basis of the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights. That's what's stopping us. That's why we need to pull out of those to make decisions for ourselves.
If we could have our Rwanda scheme, you were in power and you couldn't make it work. And the fact is it was never going to work because it was never big enough to deal with the scale of the problem. And what one's got to understand about this issue is what we've now seen for 80 years is peace in Europe and the creation of a single market, which was Margaret Thatcher's single greatest achievement. That has been fractured by the dialogue about Brexit and the racial undertones that lie with it. And all of this is festered with the immigrant problems that we're talking about. The only realistic solution is to stop the flow of immigrants at the borders of Europe.
We stop the flow of immigrants at the borders of the United Kingdom, and it's not to do with peace. Peace is through NATO, as you know perfectly well, as a very distinguished former Secretary of State for Defence, and that actually we took in 6 million people from the EU who managed to get settled status. And the problem of migration that so annoyed and upset voters, one of the reasons they voted for Brexit, was they didn't want this uncontrolled migration, legal or illegal. They want secure borders, and we can only provide that if we leave the European Convention and the Refugee Convention.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that, first of all, leaving the Court of Convention would be a major step back. We have had 80 years of peace in Europe because we have a code of law which actually governs the way we all behave. And this is completely contrary to the history of our country, which has sent over generations, over hundreds of years, the young people to die on virtually unremembered incidents, which actually arose because the politicians failed to get agreement, failed to have some sort of accord, and then were responsible to watch the wars that developed. And all of that has come to an end because we have come to sanity in our arrangements with our Europeans.
All right. Well, it's a great pleasure to have you on, Lord Heseltine, one of the most distinguished Conservatives of the Thatcher period.
Click here for some more videos on the disaster that is Brexit.